Hello, it's Mike from Dimensional Walking. Uh, how are you, everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing well. So today I wanna talk about a subject kind of dear to my heart a little bit because it comes off of one of the most popular articles on my website, Truth Seeker Forum, which I have for 13 years. And years ago, I did a blog on the group called the Scythians, and I'll explain it who those people are and do a little historical perspective about them. But this particular broadcast, I want to call it Scythian Celt Alien Race Connection. Okay, and I'm going to give you some reasons why I think there is some connection to an alien race. I don't want to say there's solid evidence of this, but there's some really interesting things. And later on, I'm going to tell you why I even kind of got into this and why I've kind of dug in a little bit to the history of it and looked for writings of other scholars who have talked about the Scythians and who they are, what they are, how they affect our world maybe today in many ways. Which I believe they are, and they probably will as time goes on. We'll see, though. We'll see. So, anyways, from a historical perspective, so between let's say it was between 30 the third BC to 7 BC, in between there, which is about 400 years. Suddenly a group that came to be known as the Scythians appeared. And they appeared, I guess we'll call it suddenly. And the reason I'm saying suddenly is because there is no real way to easily trace them to any other progression of evolution at all. So anyways, I just want to stress that because as I was researching this in the past and just more recently, many of the scholars and authors that I read about kept on saying suddenly. So it's kind of weird that everybody says kind of the same thing from their research, that they kind of appeared and they don't seem to have a tracing back to any other kind of civilization, alien or race, not alien race necessarily, but any type of other race. So anyways, this group suddenly developed again. I'm sorry, I'm using that word suddenly, but it's kind of important, I guess. And they were found in the region called Eurasia. And we're going to define this as kind of present Eastern Germany, up into southern Russia, and as far south as like the Black Sea. So that's kind of it's about 700 or 800 miles. And like I said, it goes into southern Russia. And like I said, it also does extend south to Iran. And some of this, there's a lot of talk about some of the ancient sites having these Scythian type beings, we'll call them, a race of people, and in some of their old temples in Iran. So there is some connection to Iran for sure, I would guess, when it's all said and done. Now, some of their characteristics are they're very white skinned. Many of them are blonde reddish hair, and some of them are solid red hair. So the redheads, okay? And many of the people that were redheads were some of their leaders. If you had all red hair, you had a good possibility you were going to be in leadership, in a leadership role, because there was something about the solid redheads. So anyways, also I want to just mention there was a group closer to the Black Sea that was very, very similar in many aspects, and they were considered like an Aryan group. one of the Aryan groups. Again, they were white, and some of them did have, more of them had more blonde than they had red. But there seemed to be, at times, they were like enemies of each other. The Sumerians, I mean, the Scythians and the Crimeans were enemies, and then they kind of worked together, and eventually down the road, they will hook up together and become the same. So anyways, that's who they were. So anyways, there's one more interesting thing, and I'm going to mention this because it also came up in the literature kind of over and over again. And I don't want to go into it too deeply right now, but it seems like there's people that are talk about the connection that around the time that the Scythians appeared, the 10 lost tribes, as I call them, of Israel disappeared. So there's some people that want to connect them together and say, hey, maybe this is the 10 lost tribes of Israel, and they now are called Scythians, and they took on that role. I don't think so. I just don't feel it. Other people say it's possible, maybe it isn't. But if you want to jump into this and get a little deeper, you're going to see that come up again and again also. But I didn't find, in my research, I didn't find any real solid connection to that at all. But it does come up. So I wanted to mention it, because when you see it, you can say, well, why didn't Mike kind of mention it? And I want to mention it now. So anyways, so we got this group of Scythians, and let me tell you this, they're nomadic. That's really important. They're moving constantly. They have some horses, which I believe they got, my speculation, they got that from Mongolia. Some of the horses they got maybe trading. So they got horses. So they were nomads. They really didn't set up villages. If they set up some kind of encampments, they were just temporary, and they kept on moving on, grazing animals or whatever it is. But they didn't make cities. They didn't do any of that. And they were pretty dang happy doing that. Okay, until between, I believe, let me look real quickly here, between 2000 BC and 500 AD, there was a shift and a change in the climate in this region. And this region, again, was east of Germany, present day Germany, into southern Europe. This was kind of a plains. They call it the Ural Steppes. And what it was is an area that had plains in it. That's where these nomads would come and go back and forth. And for some reason, there was a climate change. And the climate change created an area that wasn't, a lot of the grasslands just kind of disappeared. And because of that, and other enemies of the Scythians pushed them to the west, in fact, to the far west, and to such places as present day France, into Scandinavia, all along kind of the coastal area of Europe, present day Europe. And when that drove them there, that changed a lot of things, because now they weren't going to be nomads. They had to find a way to adapt. And basically how they adapted was they started getting into some farming. They started cities, little towns, organizations. And many people feel that they probably are, let me just get to the point. They were probably the origins of Western democracies. They started developing leaders, and they started developing people to follow the leaders, etc. And they kind of inspired things like political, artistic, economic, social development, and in the western part of the Europe. And so anyways, what happened is they drove right up to the coast, basically, and they may even been involved eventually with ships, etc. And that's probably where they started taking on the look of the Celts. Now, Celtish people have red hair, they're tall, they're strong, and they're, they do have organization as far as towns and cities, and they did some farming, etc. Although they did a lot of going around, and they hang out in Scandinavian, those Celtic people became, there's another one of our cats, being curious. So you got all And in the picture right now, you got both our cats, and you got the back end of our dog. So, anyways, um, they're gonna try to hopefully just be nice. So, anyways, the Celts, now there's a development that the Scythians have over several hundred more years become the Celts, become the Vikings, become the Picts of England. So there, a lot of this is mixing now together, and that's why it's pretty incredible. The other reason I'm going to tell you that I think this could be a little bit of a kind of alien kind of origin race was because in my own personal research, I had found out that Celts have some pretty amazing abilities and powers. And I'll probably do a whole nother video on what I discovered when I did a lot of research in the Appalachian Mountains and Eastern United States about the mixture of mixing the Celts and the Native Americans together and what kind of amazing offspring that brings. And I did that myself in my own research over probably a 10-year period. But we'll talk about that in the future. But it's in this mix. It's really in this mix. It really is. So with that said, so we have right now, I've got all of them over there in England, in Ireland, in the Scandinavian countries, and in the western coast of Europe itself. And so next, what I want to talk about now is a few other things. And this, a lot of this is based on some of my own research and based on some experiences that Rainbow and I had when we went to Utah. And the experience we had in Utah was basically it kind of really got the juices going on studying the Scythians and how important they are and maybe who they are, okay? So anyways, we'll go back to Europe, and there was at times where again, the Christians that were also in this area, Christian Europeans, considered people that had red hair witchcraft. They had some interesting abilities, but they didn't like their abilities at all. So many of them were considered untrustworthy in many aspects of their life. And there was, medieval type considerations that people with red hair, that they had magical properties. The red hair itself had magical properties. The fat from redheaded people could be made into poisons. Their blood could be turned copper into gold. Their urine could be used as paint for stained glass windows. So there was some really interesting things that developed. I don't think any of that's true, but people believed something there, and a lot of the Christians didn't particularly like anybody that has red hair or redheaded. So anyways, so there is I'm sure some of you heard of Sergio de Bergerac, and it was I guess it was an old play that goes way back, and then there was a couple movies made, one in the 50s and one later, I think it was in the 70s if I remember correctly. But anyways, Sergio de Bergerac was a character that he made an interesting statement I just picked up on, and I want to read it to you. He said that, and this is just a character, and he said redheaded ones were pure, brave, best balanced and had best balanced constitutions, and their spirits were more clarified than any other haired people, any other colored haired people. Now, I must tell you, if you know the story, he fell in love with a redheaded woman, and of course, probably makes him a little biased in what he said. But there were some interesting truths in this because it's kind of a mixed bag. Now, I don't know that many solid redheaded people. You may, I'm sure a lot of people do, but I do find them just the opposite, very trustworthy, and very much like Sergio said. They were pure, brave, and a balanced constitution. I've always enjoyed being around the redheaded people. even though there isn't that many of them here, or at least where I am. But anyways, so the whole point of the redheaded conversation was that is one of the traits of the Scythians, is that many of them are redheaded. Not all of them, but many of them are redheaded. And in some of their origins, from the red hair comes from Iran. And this may be part of the whole thing, is that it came from, and then they migrated and became the Scythian people, which eventually, again, when they got to Europe, then they got in these tribes like the Picts, that had, red hair, wild tattoos, rode horses, fought like Vikings, and some of them were Vikings, actually. Another interesting thing, the Scythian women were powerful warriors. Okay, they did find some graves that they were found wearing heavy armor, and were very tall, and many of them, they described them as Amazons. And there's always been this connection between Scythian Viking type women and the Amazon women of Amazonia, which, as you probably know, is a long way apart, from Amazon in South America to up in the British Isles and in Scandinavia. That's a long distance. So how did that all come together? I don't know. Anyways, there's also been conversation about some of these sites finding giants up in Western Europe and in Scandinavia, where there's been some, and they're kind of more rumor. It's more of rumor from the standpoint, it's kind of this hidden archaeology that you hear about, where there's really weird things out there that isn't brought to the mainstream at all because we cannot explain it, or the scholars cannot explain it. So they don't want to bring that type of stuff to the forefront. And then it kind of screws up their whole paradigm on what they believe in and what they've been telling us is true. Now, I'm not saying that mainstream stuff is untrue. No, I don't say that. But I do understand how they would feel about things like UFOs and Sasquatch and all these kind of folklore type figures or folklore type things that, the mainstream does not deal with, but probably is very much true. In fact, I know, obviously, I've been in this business a long time. I know that a lot of those things are true. So anyways, these giants, supposedly, they come in up in the Bible. They talk about giants, and some of them, I think there is mention of a red-headed giant in the Bible. I cannot quote the verse in scripture at all to you. But anyways, they were said to have actually guarded the Garden of Eden. So that was kind of interesting too. So that brings me to a conversation about Utah. I lived in Utah a couple of times, and I love Utah. It's a wonderful place, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and there's a lot of stuff going on. There's Skinwalker Ranch there, which we write about. There's Dugaway, which we've written. I've actually done two. No, Dugaway, I've only done one so far. We'll probably do another one on the Dugaway, the Area 51, new Area 51. So anyways, so Rainbow and I, when we lived there back several years ago, we would take our little adventures and go out and find paranormal things, ghosts and haunted places, etc. And one time we just decided to do a little something different. It wasn't really in the paranormal vein. So we went out to towards Price, Utah. And Price, Utah, and the area east of Price, Utah, is known for dinosaur bones and fossils and all that stuff. And you can literally go there in some of the places if you know where to go, and you can find fossils, tons of great fossils, a lot of vegetation type fossils, but also bones of dinosaurs, etc. So we were out there, but we wanted to go around and dig stuff up. So we went to a place that was kind of known, kind of not known. It was, I had to do a lot of research to find it, make some phone calls, and I finally found out where it was. So as we drive out there, we get to the location. It's a beautiful place. It's, kind of a sandy soil mixed in with pine trees. And it looked like some people were digging around. So we probably knew we were in the right spot. So we get our shovels and our picks and all our equipment, our knee pads and all that really cool stuff that you have when you start looking for stuff, and our buckets. We had big buckets because we'd pick up stones too. I mean, we were kind of rock hounds also. So anything we could find that looked interesting, we're going to take, right? So as we go up there, we're climbing around. We're there for a couple of hours, and we're having a pretty good time. And we kind of went off in our separate kind of areas, because we all kind of work at a little different pace. But we were finding some things. We found several fossils, and we found some really cool stones, etc. And so then I kind of looked around, and I couldn't see where Rainbow was at all. And I got a little concerned. This is kind of a place. This isn't our place. It was kind of public. It was public lands, so we could be there, but you just don't never know who you're going to run into, right? So anyways, I was looking around for her and calling out her name, and finally I saw her, but she wasn't really responding to my name calling, or she didn't look up or anything. So I just walked over, figured she was just focused on something there. And come to find out, she was focused, and it was she was zoning. She was zoning out. She come to find out, she had a vision. And what the vision is all about was very fascinating. And I'm going to tell you what the vision was. So what Rainbow told me is that she was feeling, first of all, she felt it. She felt like vibrations under the ground. And then she had a vision. She had a vision of an area under the ground, somewheres probably close by where she was, that she saw giants. She saw giants in a stasis form. And when I say a stasis form, as you probably know, they were like in suspended animation. And she said she saw them. It seemed to be starting to wake up. And these were big giants. She said that, 8, 9, 10 feet. They were huge. They were huge. And they were laying there fully dressed in kind of I don't know if she's described as a uniform, but very much, kind of, these look like it must have been royalty or something, because they look like they're dressed up in fancy kind of outfits with kind of armor and stuff like that on them. They were kind of laying prone on kind of an altar-ish looking table or something. And anyways, they looked like they were waking up, and they were slowly getting up. And that was her real impression. And she was like, just in the zone, watching this whole vision transpire in front of her. There seemed to be some women, there seemed to be men and women there. Some of them had long braided hair, red hair, a lot of red hair. She said some blonde, and I can't remember if she said 5 or 6 different beings there, and a couple of them seemed to be waking up. So Rainbow is an empath. I must maybe say that. We probably have said it before in some of the videos. So she has a real ability to see this stuff. So anyways, we had this. She told me the story. We continued. The vision was over. So we continued to do our thing, and we got some really cool fossils, and we got some more rocks, etc. And then we dragged it back down the hill, and we put it in our car, and we went home. So that was kind of the end of that. So I got curious, and I said, okay, well, let's just see if there's any kind of information about any kind of giants. Now, I had heard about giants in Nevada, kind of these big giant bones that were found, etc. And then they were put in a museum, and they were kind of hidden in the museum, etc. And you can probably go online and find out about it. I don't remember exactly what the name of the little town is. It's somewhere in northern Nevada, Yakimaka or something like that. I don't remember the name exactly. But anyways, I was told, a friend of mine years ago told me about the museum. And so they used to have the bones out front, and then now they moved them somewhere else. And I guess certain people can still see them, but you got to be real nice and talk to them or whatever, in a special way, I guess. Maybe use hand signals or something. I don't really know. But anyways, I believe there is such a place, and it probably is some of these bones. But all around the United States, there has been graves of giants found, okay? And they've been considered hidden archaeology. So this isn't a surprise, but I didn't know of any in Utah. So that was the reason I did some research, spent a couple of days looking, and finally I came across something. And it was shocking. It was surprising and shocking at the same time. And you can go online, you can read this. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. It's a long story, but very fascinating. So anyways, a little community, it's called Manti, Manti. It's in Utah. And it happened to be only 15 miles from where we were that day, which was incredible. And the story is there's a guy, I believe, named Brewer. I don't remember, maybe it was James Brewer, but last name I think was Brewer. And he had stumbled across a cave. And in the cave were mummies of giants. And they were dressed in this sort of what like Rainbow described, this kind of regal type of outfits. And supposedly these mummies in this cave that Mr. Brewer found were not in stasis. They were mummies, so they were obviously dead. But there was like some coffins, there were some large coffins, and there were some other artifacts around it, the way it was described. Now, this could be folklore, I don't know, but there's some people that truly believe this. But the location is not known. But at the time, which is still years ago, my understanding is that either a relative was still alive that knew of the cave, etc., but he was not telling anybody about it. And he claims that he had gone to the cave since his relative had found it and knew where it was, but he wasn't going to tell anybody about it. I guess, I don't know, because there was something in it that he didn't want to. Maybe if he had $1 million and gave him $1 million, he'd let you go there. I don't know. But anyways, that was just fascinating because here was something that we didn't know about that apparently was close by to, and we don't really actually, let me tell you this, that is where this brewer guy lived, was in this town. We don't know exactly, it wasn't necessarily in the town where this cave was. So who knows where the cave was? Maybe it was even closer to where we were. And maybe Rainbow was getting some kind of a vibe off of that, of the cave or something. We don't really know, but it was just fascinating that we had that, Rainbow had that vision. And then I read about this guy named Brewer and what his experiences were. So anyways, we thought it was pretty incredible. But off of that and all the other research I have done, my feeling is that this could very well have been some kind of an alien race that had red hair. And that either mixed, like hybridization of humans out in Europe, 5, 6, 7, 800 BC. And that's the reason they suddenly appeared. Now, maybe somewhere down the road, somebody will figure out that they came from some other part of the world, etc. But up to this point, nobody seems to really have any concrete information to that effect. So anyways, that is my story about the Scythian Celt alien race connection. The Scythians were really interesting people. I didn't really go into the Sumerians. They were also from Iran, and there is some conversation that there was a relationship between them and the Sumerians, which, as you probably know, the Sumerians, some people believe, were also an alien race. So I don't know if there's a connection between the Scythians, if they're an offshoot of the Sumerians, or actually the Sumerians, the Scythians moved into the area of Iran and became the Sumerians. So I'm not sure about that angle, but it's also an angle that may play into this thing. So anyways, so the redheaded folks out there, you may be connected directly with an alien race. I mean, there's no doubt you're pretty interesting people that have red hair. You're different. There's no doubt you're different. And I think in a good way, at least all the redheaded people I have known. So if you have some stories about redheaded people, good, bad, or ugly, love to hear from you. We also would love to hear from you from a standpoint of what do you want us to talk about. We can talk about almost any subject. We're really We've been doing the paranormal and things related to the paranormal for many, many years. And we're just kind of getting out there now and kind of sharing with what we know and some of the stories that we've heard and some of the research that we have done. So again, you can contact us at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like us if you want, dislike us if you want, it's fine. But just communicate with us, comment us. But anyways, we're here for you, and we will answer any kind of questions, any kind of concerns you have about any subject matter in the paranormal. If we can't find out, we can give you names of people that know the answers. So anyways, hey, listen, have a great day. Love ya. And we'll see you later. Bye-bye.